Alrighty, so a couple things before we get started today. One, yes, I absolutely do look like a demonic bird. Would I ever wear this outside of my house? No. Would I wear this just for you guys? Absolutely. So there's that. You're welcome. 2, I've noticed a large influx of people coming in. By large, I mean like a couple of tens of people, like 12 new people have come in since I'm filming this video, and I wanted to thank you guys for joining me. You guys are great. I honestly didn't expect even one person to subscribe to me within, I don't know, a year, so I really want to thank you for joining this channel. It's nice to see new faces, so I hope you stick around because I have a lot of things that I want to talk about. 3, took me a week to get a video uploaded. It was the Bleach episode, the Bleach movies ranking, so forgive me for that. If you see a lot of weird, terrible edits in there, there was a lot of things going on. Didn't remember everything, and also YouTube tried to block the video, so you see a lot of editing issues. That is why, and my apology. 4, if you are a new subscriber, just be aware that not all of my videos are going to be based on animation. They will be talking about comic books, they will be talking about anime that I like, they'll be talking about manga, whatever. It's honestly whatever I want to talk about. It will be based off of media, mostly. So it could be even YouTubers, who knows. I try not, I'm not necessarily someone who wants to talk about YouTubers, unless it's specifically a video they did or something. So just keep that in mind, but I feel like I had to get that out of the way because people are coming in, and I just wanted to make this clear. I think there's a 5th thing. Oh, 5th thing, which is divided into 2 parts. 1, this is a long intro. 1, I do have a fan on because it is hot as heck in here. I'm also wearing a really long sleeve, tight mesh shirt, so it makes me sweaty. So there's that. And 2, sorry, I'm still working on my audio volume, so if this volume is still too low by the time I upload it, I'm really sorry. I'm trying to fix that by now. I'm still in the process of getting everything together. Okay, so with that being said, let's get into our video, shall we? Hi, hello, welcome. My name is Amber. Welcome to my channel if you're new here. And if you're someone who's been here for a while, welcome back. It's good to see you. We have a very fun and exciting thing to be talking about today. It's going to be comic book related. Specifically a comic book that I feel not too many people understood at the end, and I kind of wanted to weigh in on what I think. I also don't find a lot of YouTube reviews on it, so here we are. Today we're going to be talking about Emily Carroll's When I Arrived at the Castle. Fun fact, I am a huge fan of Emily Carroll. I have been a fan of hers since I picked up Through the Woods. I picked that book up in like 2015. I was starting to look into comics more, mostly because I just really love comics, and I've always loved comics as a kid, but I didn't own too many. So Through the Woods is one of the very first books I've ever picked up by Emily Carroll. I've read a lot of her online comics, I've read a lot of her small, short little horror zines, like, I don't remember the name of it, give me a sec. Oh, like Beneath the Dead Oak Tree. I have it right back here. Actually, let me pull it out so I can show you. Beneath the Dead Oak Tree, it is sold through Shortbox Comics. Very good little tidbit thing to own if you ever get interested in her books. But today we're specifically going to be talking about When I Arrived at the Castle, and it is sort of a review, however it is more of an interpretation, an analysis of sorts, because the ending is very confusing. As in, like, the first time I read it, I had no idea what happened. So I'm going to start off this analysis by saying this story is beginning with the end. and we slowly get the beginning through snapshots, little bits here and there, things of that nature. So just be aware that this whole story, this whole video is going to be spoilers, because I'm going through the entirety of it. I read a lot of reviews that said people were very confused, that there was not enough page space to actually get a decent idea of what the story was. So allow me to give you my interpretation. I think that's the best way to put it. So we open up this book by seeing a Catwoman who has no name enter into a castle during a very dark and stormy night. And she walks in, she doesn't seem to knock or anything. She walks in as if she knows the place. And immediately she's greeted by a woman known as the Countess. And the Countess greets her very familiarly, except the Catwoman doesn't seem to she seemed to really know who she is, and she's very surprised that she was waiting for her. We learn that this Catwoman intends to murder the Countess, and she's very nervous to do so. So the fact that the Countess is there waiting for her throws her off a bit. She's very nervous, and she's even more thrown off by the fact that the Countess invites her up to her kind of like a living room area, the guest room, whatever, things like that. Invite her up, get her warm, dry her off, sit her by the fire. And I meant to mention this in the beginning. Instead of calling the main character Catwoman, I'm just going to call her Cat, like C-A-T. You could also write K-A-T, but I'm calling her Cat because she has no name. We are given no name throughout this entirety of this story, so Cat and the Countess. Okay, yeah. So when she arrives, she says, "You're early. You're early." So not only was she expecting Cat to arrive, but Cat is a lot earlier than she anticipated. So red flag number one, if not a million. And we see Cat saying something along the lines that this place smells like thick and rich churning loam. I don't remember exactly what loam is right off the bat. I've heard the word before. I'll put the definition right here, so you and I both know what it is, or at least editing me will know what it is. Okay, so she invites her by the fire, offers her a drink. The Countess offers her a drink, and Cat accepts. The Countess takes her coat and says, "That coat must weigh on you terribly. Please allow me." And Cat describes how the Countess peeled the cloak away from my damp skin like she was dividing dead flesh from the living. Ooh, yikes, that's a description, alright. If that doesn't already set the tone, there's already so many opportunities where the tone has been set. But peeling dead flesh away from the skin, seems like foreshadowing to me, fam. But surprisingly, when the Countess asks her why she's there, Cat immediately tells her. Like, she considers saying something else, but she's like, "I'm here to kill you." And the Countess is a little bit surprised that she's very forthright and forthcoming with the answer. Funnily enough, though, she says, "I forgive you, you're far from the first." So she's clearly not the first person to try to kill the Countess. Interesting. The plot thickens as we go along. Even though she says she forgives her, her demeanor clearly changes, far from being very inviting to a little bit more hostile. So playfully hostile in a way, so like passive aggressive almost. So instead of being encouraging and loving and, "Oh, let me get your coat for you, and let me sit you by the fire, dear," she's more like, she actually says, "Please finish your drink unless you're eager to bare your teeth." So the Countess is obviously sizing Cat up and down, and Cat's also doing that too, but we see her staring more at her body. So clearly some sexual tension, very vampire-esque, even though, spoiler alert, that she's not a vampire. We're just gonna, not really at least, we're gonna get that off the table right away. But Cat seems to be sizing her up, and the Countess seems to be sizing Cat up. So together they're trying to figure out who their opponent is. And while the Countess is sizing up Cat, she says, "You're a tiny, timid, shivering little thing." Whether or not that's true, this is obviously a tactic to intimidate and to break her will. She says, "Your meekness, it has a stink, you know." Interesting. Instead of her just immediately trying to be like, "I'm going to kill you before you kill me," the Countess says there's a bath already drawn upstairs. Cat follows the Countess upstairs reluctantly, and alas, there is a bath, and she says that, by she I mean the Countess. The Countess says, "I had already taken a bath, but it's still warm. You are allowed to have it. You can have your privacy, and we will continue this once you're finished." So far, so many things, so many things. As they're climbing up to the bathroom, though, we get Kat's inner monologue that she's foolish for coming. She's starting to feel like this was not a good idea, which probably isn't. And she's saying, "I'm a fool for coming, I'm a fool for thinking that this would work." But then she says, "But I've dreamed of her home for so long." Interesting. She's obviously been planning this for a while. We don't know why. We don't know why she hasn't done it before yet. But we just know that she is trying her best to keep her resolve. And while she's taking her bath, she starts to hear 3 knocks at the door. And Kat sits up and she's like, "Is that?" I assume she's thinking that's the Countess, or there's someone there to help her. The knocking gets louder and more intense and incessant until it starts to actually become banging. And by that point, Kat gets out of the bath, terrified and soaking wet, barely able to wrap a robe around herself as she flings the door open to see who or what was at the door. And as she turns the knob, no one is there. There's no one knocking on the door, or at least not that we can see. Clearly shaken by this, she decides to enter bath, gets herself dressed and ready to go, and she asks herself how many people had come to the castle and bathed, hearing the knocking and opened the door to find no one else there. Interesting question. I wonder how many people the Countess had expected. That's my thing. It's not that there's more people there who come before her, just how many she had expected. I think that's important to know. So eventually we see Kat roaming down the halls again by herself, looking for the Countess until we find these 2 large white doors. Kat leans down, peers in through the keyhole, and we see the Countess putting her hair up, trying to look nice, and she's in her own robe as well. But for a brief second, we see a flash. We see her flesh divide and separate, exposing her to be a red demonic kind of creature with sharp teeth and claws and the like. So clearly the Countess is not human. If you couldn't tell that, that's fair, but also there's nothing about this woman that's normal. So she sees her through the keyhole, her body goes back to normal, and then suddenly her eye meets the keyhole. The Countess's eye is up against the keyhole, meeting Kat. Kat flies back because the doors are then flung open, and the Countess is like, "Are you finally finished?" So she's very aggressive now. Whether it's because her privacy was violated or she had seen the monstrous form, who knows? But either way, the Countess is ready to draw blood, obviously. So as soon as she scares the living shit out of Kat, the Countess pins her against the wall and bares her fangs. Nosy little thing. Is it now? Oh wow, I can't read. Is it now then? Is it now that you kill me? Her beautiful figure twists again, stained red, her eyes bulging from her face and her eyelids sagging and receding away. So we start to see her mask fade a little bit again to reveal the monster that's inside of her, but she's still very much the beautiful woman that we see in the beginning. Clearly, we have not seen her fully in her glory yet. And then she taunts her by saying, "What will you use to draw my blood? How will you kill me?" Like, once again, trying to intimidate Kat. And Kat is like this, and she's just trying to get away. So it's very violent, but it's also very erotic. I think this is important to realize. Like a lot of vampiric stuff, vampires are often seen as sensual beings, mostly because of the way that they kill their victims. I don't know why I'm explaining this to you, I just feel like it's important to realize that this is something in the story, very homoerotic relationship dynamic between the two characters. So struggling against the Countess, Kat says, "I'm sorry," which I find a little strange. If you're trying to kill someone, you typically don't say "I'm sorry," but it feels like they're very familiar with each other. And it seems like Kat doesn't understand how familiar she is. It's strange. It's a strange dynamic. And the Countess doesn't really care. She just says, tell me how you'll kill me." The next couple of images show us Kat's terror as the Countess touches her face, brushes against her teeth, and lets them scrape across her fingers. Again, homoerotic. Eventually, the Countess goes back to her normal, beautiful, flawless figure and says, "I see. The bath did not do its work," so meaning it doesn't take away the meekness or the fear that is coming off of her like a stench. And it's also during this moment that when she's saying this to Kat, we get to see an image of her eyes and her teeth. Because when we see Kat, she's obviously a cat woman, but we don't get an image of that. We see her as like this meek little cat woman, not her feral animalistic behaviors. So we see hints of that. Suddenly the Countess grabs Kat's wrist, pulling her behind her down the halls, with the simple command to come. The air grows colder, thicker as they run silently down the halls, and we see this whole backdrop of a beautiful and really haunting looking castle with bizarre statues, really bizarre pictures and portraits, all in like black and white and crimson. So it's very gothic, but also very macabre. Very, very, very pretty, and also you still see that it's raining outside. And they keep going until they reach a room lined from the top to the bottom with red doors, a whole bunch of them. Kat says, "Doors like a nest of ravenous baby birds, their mouths yawning from the floor to the ceiling, an eye worm dangling from her beak," the Countess's beak. So something big's going down, fam. Something big. And then, as they stand there, Countess orders her to choose a door. She says, "Choose one. Did you ever wonder what happened to the ones who came here before?" Looking around, Kat finally chooses a door, noticing the odd, intricate, skull-shaped door knockers on each one. Her hand reaches out, then falls back on her chest, not clear which one it is. It's not clear which one it is, but they all look the same. Then it doesn't really matter now, does it? "A fine choice," the Countess hisses. "Allow me," and she reaches for the door handle, and we cut to these 2 red pages with a random story that at first we don't really see how it ties in. And let me read it for you. "There once was a woman with 2 daughters, one beautiful and one plain, who set out through the forest to reach the great city beyond. Not so long after they had made their way into the trees, however, they found themselves lost. So the mother told one daughter to go east and one daughter to go west. She found herself going north, and eventually one of them would discover the way out. All alone now, the eldest daughter walked deeper and deeper into the wood. The trees around her grew larger and larger, the light from the sun dimmer and dimmer. The branches above knit together like folded hands. Soon it was impossible to tell one direction from another, or even to know if it was day or night. In her frustration, she began to weep. 'Shh, shh,' said a voice. When the girl looked up, she saw a cat perched on a black tree limb. Its eyes were large and yellow as the moon in autumn. 'Take this,' said the cat, 'and plunge it into the heart of whomever you see next.
Their blood will spill a path, and that path will lead you out of the forest. And with that, the cat dropped a dagger at the girl's feet, then disappeared back into the darkness of the trees. The girl took the knife and continued to walk. She walked and walked until finally she entered a clearing. In the clearing was a small basket, and inside the basket was an infant crying out for its mother. The girl raised her hand, but she could not bring herself to stab the child. So she stabbed herself, and her blood spilled a path, and the path led through the trees to a castle.
So, it's very important, this next part. Pay attention. From this, we now know that there was a talking cat in the woods. We are not given a description of said cat. We are not said cat woman, just cat. And of course, the cat relates to a castle at the edge of the forest, much like the one we are in. Funny that. So cat comes out of that door. We did not get to see what was in the door. We only see a couple of red pages with text on them. So she says, as soon as she walks out this door, I didn't know her. I never knew her. She came all on her own. And this is the first time we actually see Kat speak in the story. Usually we just see her little narration because she's the one narrating the story. And her speech bubbles are the color of freshly drawn blood. So all of her words are in crimson. Impossible. I would have recognized her. That wasn't her. So what I gather is that she sees the girl who came here from before, but she is different. So from what I understand, the cat is cat. We just need to make that establishment right now. Cat is cat. The cat from the forest is cat. And the girl is obviously the girl who kills herself and makes a path to the castle. Keep that in mind. So she spins on her heel screaming, "What did you do to her?" So clearly something's wrong with this kid. We don't get to see what it is though. I assume something monstrous, but I don't know what it is. Now she's standing in a circle of red doors. So it's like they formed a circle, or maybe she's just panicking. One of those two things. Surprised. She's alone now, left with the choice of opening another door so she can flee. She calls out for the Countess, and of course the Countess doesn't answer, but she can feel her presence, wondering if she disappeared into one of those doors. She thought of fleeing, but it seemed futile, as if a labyrinth of hallways and doors with no chance of escape. She had to keep going. Another door opened as her blood-stained hands tug on the handle, and we get another story.
There once was a shepherdess whose flock began succumbing to a strange illness. It would begin with the animals' eyes turning milk white, their throat uttering a strangled cry. Then the poor creature would be on its side, foam rising from its skin. Helpless, the girl was down to her last half-dozen sheep within a week. She would stay with the animals all night, weeping over their tortured forms, alone and isolated and unable to stem an ounce of their pain. Then, one night, she heard a voice from the tall grasses in the field. "Shh, shh, shh," said the voice. And as the girl watched, the grasses parted and a cat with large yellow eyes crept towards her. In its teeth was a knife. "Take this knife and slice open the belly of the next sheep that dies," said the animal, dropping the blade in her lap. "Inside, you will find a solution to your problem." The cat disappeared again, and the next time a sheep died, the girl did as it had said. She split open the warm belly of the next sheep who died and reached a hand inside. When she withdrew her arm, dripping with gore, she was holding a small hand mirror. The mirror reflected not only her tear-stained face, but there, just over the curve of her shoulder, a distant castle, one she had never noticed before.
Well, allow me to say that this one is very much more informative because it calls the cat an animal. So we are very clearly seeing that this cat is not human shaped. It is a cat. It is a literal cat that can speak. So you're probably wondering, how is this cat the cat girl we see? Well, allow me to explain myself. We need to keep going before I do so, but it will be coming soon. Don't worry. Okay, so again we get another story about a girl being approached by a talking cat in her hour of need, offering some gruesome advice. And that advice brings the girl to the castle in order to find the solution to her affliction. Do I detect a pattern? So I'm going to take a moment to say, I find it very weird that Kat is sitting here and she's like, how many people have come before me? But also at the same time, she wonders, did they see these things that I'm seeing? How did they feel? Are these people in this room? Like, she recognizes the people in the room. Well, she does, but she doesn't. So obviously she knows the story, but they're fragmented memories of sorts. So again, she says, I don't recognize her. This is not the girl I'd seen before. Actually, let me read what she actually says, because that's important. Yeah, the door shut, the tang of blood, hot and sharp, thickened the air to soup. I could still feel it beginning to curdle in my chest, my arms, my face coalescing into a second skin. That hadn't been her, had it? That thing beyond the door hadn't been her. Countess. So this is Kat screaming Countess, and I'm not going to scream Countess because I'm not going to. She said, I could still sense her, like a pulsing vein, like a breath withheld, slowly released through clenched teeth. And eventually, she finds the door where the Countess is, except it is a dark room with everything in the shadows outlined in red. And in the light of the doorway, we see a coffin. It's also worth noting that by this point, Kat is soaked in blood from face down. Her exposed tatas are covered in blood too, and her robe is as well. So I don't know if she's touching these things, if they're touching her, if they're vomiting blood up on her. Who knows? Who knows at this point? Okay, so Kat goes into this room and she carefully approaches this coffin. And she's kneeling next to it, and before she can touch it, she hears a voice emanating up from it that says, closer, closer, closer. And out from it comes the Countess, but she's naked and she's also weird from the waist down. She looks kind of like a weird mermaid kind of thing, although she has no snake. She's more like a snake tail. So what is that? I'll put the name of it here. It's a Filipino spirit type creature. Starts with an N. Can't remember what it's called. Okay, so the Countess then asks, now, do you blame yourself for leading them here, for what they became? It's clear from that the girls are from the stories, so that confirms that. Feebly, Kat replies, yes, but the Countess rejects it. She says, no, the blood on your hands was given freely. When they arrived at my castle, they threw themselves into my arms. They wept as they unraveled into the things behind the doors, in ecstasy, in trembling heat. Isn't that right? The Countess curls up around Kat, ready to strike. Reaching up, she caresses Kat's blood-stained face as Kat touches her dark lips. So they're literally caressing each other. Weird, but go off, I guess. And then this is where the Countess says, so, kill me. As if like it's an order. She's not taunting her, she's ordering her to kill her. And it's here that things go awry. The Countess sheds her skin fully. So we get to see her as like this really weird red demonic creature again, with no skin, all muscle and claws. The one thing I really want to point out is that the next couple of panels, they're not they're very much like a sex scene. It's very terrifying because there's a lot of teeth, there's a lot of claws, there's a lot of blood. This is not how sex works. I'm just saying that right off the bat. That's not how sex works, kids. Also, if you're a kid and you're watching this, go away. So, very sensual, very insane. And the Countess is at her neck. I don't think she's drawing blood, but she might be. It looks like it. She looks like she's doing a vampiric thing. And this is where she says, in that moment, I had a dream. So Cat is kind of in a catatonic state. Cat is in a catatonic state. It's funny. So Cat is in a catatonic state, and she's sitting back here and letting the Countess do whatever she wants. And she says this.
In that moment, I had a dream. I found myself on the shore of a milk-white lake. I succumbed to it. The sinking, the syrupy descent, sleepy and quiet into depths as blank and white as the eternity above me. I slid into the smooth, welcoming, warm nothing. And then I saw it. A castle, its windows dark, its banners blank and unmoving. And in one window, a ghost, small and slight and half hidden by the darkness.
And it's an image of Cat naked standing in a window. And then we get a terrifying scene where Cat's leaning back like this, and the Countess in her weird fleshiness is screaming, cutting through into this dream. Suddenly, Cat starts to say the word animal. She says animal, animal! She starts screaming and tearing into the Countess. And the Countess's face is hidden back behind her fleshy mask. I want to say it's a mask. And then we get a story from Cat's perspective as she is tearing into the Countess, quite literally.
There once was a girl who lived in a deep and damp and dark cellar. One day, as she was attempting in vain to tidy, she discovered a tiny cupboard. Inside was a cat, curled up and sleeping. "Who are you?" asked the girl. "Who are you?" asked the cat. The girl explained who she was, and that she lived in the cellar, and that she only did so because in the house above roamed a great and terrible beast. At that moment, both cat and girl heard its heavy footfalls tremble through the floor above. "I'll tell you what," said the cat. "Find me a knife, and I'll cut off my skin, and you'll cut off yours, and we will swap places. I will outwit the beast above for you, and you will be free of the cellar." So the girl found a knife, and she took off her skin, and the cat took off its skin, and they slid into the skin of the other. Then the cat, who was now a girl, took the girl, who was now a cat, and tucked her away in the cupboard, where it had been sleeping. "Shall I stay here until you return?" asked the cat. "Yes," said the girl. "Don't move." And she grinned a toothy grin and left.
And that is the end of this story. You, like me, when I first read this, are probably thinking, Amber, what the fuck just happened? Well, like I said, this story begins at the end. So allow me to retell you the story from the beginning. As I just read, there was a girl who lived in a cellar of a castle. And this girl, for whatever reason, somehow found herself living here, or her parents lived there and were killed. Something along those lines. Something happened to where this girl ended up living in the cellar. And the cat was there as well. The cat says, "Hey, let's switch skins." Which, by the way, if a cat ever talks to you, first of all, you might need some medicine. Second of all, if it offers to switch skins with you, it's not a cat, it's a fucking demon, and don't do it. But for whatever reason, it was super easy to trade skin. Scientifically, that's not possible, but we're getting off track here. This is a fantasy story, not science fiction. So they slice each other's skin off and trade skins. Somehow they are magically able to do this, and it all worked out perfectly because the girl who is now a cat is in the cat's skin, and the cat who is now a girl puts the cat who is the girl. Are you following along here? Cat girl. We're going to call her Cat Girl. This is actually Cat now. She puts the cat in the cupboard, and Cat asks the girl who is actually the cat and says, hey, should I stay here until you're done? And the cat who is actually the girl, who, mind you, I'll get to this in a second, she says, yes, wait here. And she goes upstairs. She leaves. It doesn't say she goes upstairs, but she leaves. I'm assuming she goes upstairs. Now, here's my theory on this. The castle is the monster. The castle is the monster because it appears when people aren't thinking about it. It appears in someone's moment of need. Also, so does the cat, but we'll get to that. The castle appears during times of great hardship and strife. So, Cat, as in the girl's body, goes upstairs. Well, the cat in the girl's body, not Cat, but Cat in the girl's body goes upstairs. I presume slays the monster. And then in turn, either right at that moment or as time goes along, the cat in the girl's body becomes what we know as the Countess. She becomes a monster. And I believe what happens is Cat, the girl in the cat's body, escapes. But she realizes that this friend of hers that she made, which is obviously more than just a friend, for several reasons, she realizes that the cat, also known as the Countess now, has become powerful, has become a monster, and either she wants her old skin back or she wants to make sure that the castle is rid of. Because she realizes that no matter who kills the monster, they themselves become a monster. And I'll explain how that works in a second here. So, Cat, the girl who is in the cat's body, tries to find people to go and slay the monster. And she knows that they will be found through the castle because the castle preys upon people who are going through great hardship. And she provides them with really gruesome ways to find this castle. Whether or not, I don't know if she's intending for it to be gruesome so that they kill themselves or they find themselves in ways that are just really gruesome. Either way, it's bizarre. It's terrifying. It's a terrifying fairy tale. And these girls end up finding their ways to the castle, and instead of actually, realizing that the Countess is a monster, I think what they feel is that the Countess is the one who's going to help them with their problems. Like a fairy godmother kind of thing. But the Countess, that's not what happens. The Countess turns them into something else. I assume she turns them into something like a monster, but not a monster, not like the main monster. So this obviously, I think this happens for a period of time. After a while, their bodies start to actually, well, at least Cat's, the girl in the cat's body, Cat, their body merges into the cat's pretty well and becomes very cat girl-like. So they behave a lot like a human, but they have the physique of a cat. The cat in the girl's body, however, never truly takes to the body super well. We see that Cat's a lot more secure in her skin. She's very attached to it. But the cat in the girl's body is not. And she's very monstrous. She's lost herself. Or maybe she never lost herself. Maybe she really was a monster the entire time. Or she was the monster and she knew what was going on. Something along those lines. She tricked the girl into giving her skin. Cat comes. I don't know if she remembers. Maybe she just forgot after all these years, but she still remembered that she had to get rid of this monster in the castle. The Countess obviously remembers her still. So she's like, "You're early. Thanks for coming." She doesn't know how much Cat knows, or she doesn't know if Kat is coming as one of these girls who falls over herself begging to be helped, not knowing that the Countess is a monster, and the Countess, taken aback, is like, okay, well, let's do this then. And then, of course, Kat realizes that all the girls she sent to this place ends up as a monster, and she starts to realize that maybe this is not going to work out the way she thought it would. And of course, it doesn't. And when they go to fight each other, something in Kat realizes that she's not human anymore. There's nothing left of the human that she once was, and she kills the Countess, who either she considered a friend or a lover or something along those lines. And as she kills the Countess, she in turn takes up this role as an animal, and it creates a cycle. So possibly right now, as after Kat kills the Countess, there's also possibly another girl and another cat living in a basement, a cellar of a castle, who are also struggling to leave, and this cat is switching bodies with a girl, and the same thing is happening again and again. It's a cycle of abuse in a way. I think it's very metaphorical. It's a very interesting story, but it's very obviously a metaphor, I think, for abusive relationships, and not in a very straightforward way. It could be familial, it could be friends, it could be relationships of love. Either way, it takes a very unique look at victims and abusers, because victims do rely on other people to help them sometimes, not always. I'm not saying all victims do. I think it's just very interesting because maybe they send people into a line of fire. I don't know. This is speculation. Please don't think that this is not an attempt to victim blame. This is not an attempt to infantilize or portray abuse in a light that is unfavorable. Obviously don't abuse people, but people who have been through this, their struggles are valid. Their trauma is valid, and this is very much a trauma-filled story. And I think sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes people who are in the cycle of abuse continue this cycle by abusing others or doing things the way that their abusers have done it, and they themselves become an abuser, or people who hurt people. And I think that's an interesting message and a way to portray it. I don't know if that's exactly what Emily Carroll was looking forward to doing with this story, but that's how I interpret it. It's a cycle. When I arrived at the castle is a cycle, and it's a cycle that we know very well. Many of us, not everyone, but many people know very well, and it's very slippery, and it's very easy to continue, depending on who you are as a person, how you struggle or handle it, how you decide that you want other people to help you, because it's not just abuser and the victim. There are other people who are surrounding the situation that could, be very much affected by this. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. Essentially, it's a cycle of abuse. That's the story of When I Arrived at the Castle. Very tragic one, and one that will probably repeat until someone figures out, how to actually deal with the monster. And the castle is a symbol of sorts, of relationships. And the people who are in it are just, the people on the stage, the people who are engaging in said relationship. So that is my interpretation of When I Arrived at the Castle. I sincerely hope more people read this story, buy this story, read the story, do however you want to do it. It's 72 pages. I really want to hear other people's interpretation of the story, because I don't believe that my interpretation is the solid one. I believe I'm missing things. I believe there are things I didn't catch up on. So that wraps up my analysis / review of When I Arrived at the Castle. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Again, if you have thoughts on the story, please leave them in the comments below. Shoot me a DM on social media if you want to actually have like a full-on conversation. I am so down to talk about this story. I love reading it. I love rereading it. I just love talking about it. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. If you want to see more of me online besides, videos, please subscribe to my Twitter, my Instagram. I'm more active on Twitter. My Twitter is Chiapet-IRL. It's Chiapet_IRL, I think, for Instagram. Either way, you'll be able to find me really easily. And I, like I said, hope to make more videos like this, more comics, graphic novels, manga, animated videos, things of that nature. I hope you all have an amazing day / night / whatever. I hope you all are staying safe, staying well, staying away from COVID, drinking plenty of water. I hope you are planning to vote in November if you are eligible. I hope that if you are in school, you are staying safe, and I hope to have this video up soon. Again, thank you for all the new subscribers. I'm so happy to see you. Very, very shocked and happy to have people coming on. Also, I just want to say, I know that the last episode of Big Top Burger and the season 1 compilation video is out, and I saw it and it was great. I loved the little extras that where the kids added in. I loved the oh my gosh, I just want to point out that at the end screen of Big Top Burger, we get to see Peggy with her child, Penny with her child. Oh, and she's so cute. I love Penny. Okay, anyway, that's it. I'm going to stop rambling now and actually go and try to edit this video so I can get it up on like Thursday or something. Have a good week, y'all, and I'll see you later. Bye.